Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. Great. First of all, thank you very much for for joining us tonight, this afternoon, this morning. I also like to take this opportunity to thank TravelDaily, Charlie and his team for giving me this opportunity to speak to you today. China, as you know, our travel market was the first hit by the COVID pandemic. We were also probably the earliest to see signs of recovery. Some argue the recovery process started as early as late February. To me, it felt more like, late March, early April. The recovery process was felt very strong. We have, hotel occupancies running approaching 50%. To some mid-market hotel chains, they're reaching almost 75% in hotel occupancy. And I personally was able to travel to Shanghai, to Xi'an to visit my teams in those locations. So everything was going fine until we had a flare-up of the number of infections in Beijing a couple of weeks ago. Now it seems things are under control. We're hoping to get back on track with the recovery process. As Echo mentioned, Charlie and Echo and their team wanted me to talk about some of the marketing activities during this recovery process. So I will break up my talk in 3 parts. I'll do a quick overview of the digital landscape in China and talk about the pre-pandemic digital journey for consumers. This will be for the benefit of those who are not really familiar with the China market. Bear with me for those who are really already very familiar with China and the digital landscape. I'll go very quickly for this section. For those of you who needs to get details of the landscape slides, Echo will have a PDF version of this deck for you to download after this today's talk. So don't worry. I'll go very quickly on this first segment. Then I'll get into a discussion of travel marketing during the pandemic. A lot of things were happening. Some are common to other markets. I'm sure some of the things I mentioned in that section will sound familiar to you in North America, in Europe, and other places. Some of them will be quite unique to the Chinese market, which I'll delve more into those activities for you, so you learn the specifics of kind of the recovery process in China. And then I'll get into a discussion of the changes in the consumer digital journey post-pandemic. As we know, once consumer starts to get used to something, when they get used to a new app, a new equipment like an iPhone or something like that, it's very hard for them to get back. We had multiple examples of that in China. A few years ago, when you talk about online payment and mobile payment, it's all about Alipay. But as soon as a successful campaign was launched by Tencent during the Chinese Spring Festival, during the Chinese New Year, everybody linked their bank account with their WeChat app. Then all of a sudden, people are used to using WeChat to pay. Now, WeChat Pay, the market share for WeChat Pay is approaching 40%. It's a significant player right next to Alipay. I think this will be the same for a lot of the things people have gotten themselves used to do during the pandemic. So just a quick word about Dragon Trail. We are a digital marketing agency. We are 100% focused on outbound travel markets. So all of our clients are international tourist boards, hotel companies, airlines, cruise lines, and things like that. We don't venture out of travel at all. We're also 100% focused on digital. So we're a technology company. We use technology to connect our clients to Chinese consumers. So if I have to, give a different title to my talk today, Echo and Charlie proposed the title we're using today, but if I have to come up with something else, I would be using this. The pandemic has turned Chinese travel industry executives into live streaming superstars. This is seriously happening. I'm not kidding. And this is, I'm showing the pictures of James Leong, the chairman of the Trip.com group, doing live streaming himself and selling lots and lots of hotel bookings. So I'll get into a lot of the details, the fun part, if you will. But before we do that, I want to give you a quick overview of the digital landscape in China, and also have a quick discussion of the pre-pandemic digital journey for consumers. So some of the key features of China's digital landscape. First of all, this is a very different landscape, as you know. Most of the digital platforms that the Western world are used to are not available here. In their places, we have, a plethora of Chinese equivalents, Chinese equivalents of Twitter, Chinese equivalents of YouTube, but we also have our own, super apps in the Chinese ecosystem, which are unique to this market. This is also a very crowded digital landscape. On average, people have over 15 apps to use on a daily basis. So there's a lot of competition, and new players are still coming up, as we speak. Secondly, this is also one of those very, very strong mobile-first markets. Of the 700 million plus smartphone users, almost all of them are using the internet on their phone. I think if you look at the number of internet users, the percentage of people who access the internet on their phone versus on their PC, mobile definitely exceeds 90%. So this is very, very much mobile first. I'll give you a bit more statistic on mobile first. And then we had a very big video boom. You're seeing some of that in the rest of the world as well. One of them was brought to you by a Chinese company called ByteDance, right? Their app is called TikTok. Some of you might be familiar with that. Short video has become very, very popular. And this, average of 50 minutes each day for mobile video consumption is amazing, I have to say. And then social media has been, a strong factor in the path to purchase for many, many years. If anything, the pandemic has brought the usage of social media to even a higher level. And last but not least, this society has become a cashless society for a few years. 3 or 4 years ago, I would be bragging to people, I traveled to Shanghai without having to bring my wallet. I had this whole trip without having to bring a wallet. And nowadays, I haven't had a wallet with me for at least the past 2 years. I'm making every single payment using my cell phone. So this is very, very much a cashless society already. So all these features will determine the consumer journey in China. So just to give you some contrast between China and the rest of the world for mobile usage. If you look at a research from TravelPort, this is TravelPort's Global Digital Traveler Research published last year. So on the three behavior, searching for travel information, booking trips, and trip planning using mobile, 94% of Chinese internet users would be using their mobile phone for travel search versus the global average of 61%. 82% of Chinese internet users will be using their mobile phone to booking trips versus 54.2%. These are fairly significant changes. I just want to give you a sense of the level of mobile first we have already achieved in this country. And lastly, Travelport did not give a global average, but the number of percentage of people who use their phone for trip planning is 73.8%. You can do a quick comparison of the mobile penetration in travel planning in your own countries. I'm sure you will find the Chinese penetration is higher. So as I mentioned, this market is very much mobile first and mobile driven, and the lifestyle has already become very much digital. So starting from early in the morning, people will be using one of their apps. It could be WeChat to check moments, to see what's happening with their friends, maybe to use a voice app, for some audio programs to get the day started. Then they would use a bike sharing app to ride to the subway station. They would use Alipay or WeChat Pay to buy breakfast. Once they get onto the subway, they would use Douyin, the equivalent of TikTok, the Chinese version of TikTok, or Toutiao, a very popular news app launched by the same company, ByteDance, to consume some media on their train. Once they get to the company, they use a whole suite of other apps, including some of the applications that we use on the PC. For example, a very old instant messenger called QQ, which belongs to the parent company of WeChat, Tencent. So they could also be doing some shopping. So my point here is, throughout the day, they're on their phone, buying breakfast, buying lunches, using car sharing, using bike sharing, making payments, doing e-commerce, sharing, their daily life with their friends, and consuming media. So this will be a very typical day for a young person in a first-tier city. Actually, it will be slightly different for people in second, third-tier cities. But generally speaking, this is the daily lifestyle. So after that, I'm going to get into a quick description of each of these major apps, for the benefit of those who are not very familiar with the Chinese market. I'll go very quick with these apps. So WeChat, as you know, is the number one super app. 1.2 billion monthly active users, mostly in China, though. This is not really popular outside of China. So this is really not a single app you use for a single purpose. This is really a Swiss Army knife of an app. So people use this app for many, many different things, especially after WeChat launched their mini program platform. That a lot of the smaller, applications would just build a mini program within WeChat instead of launching independent mobile applications anymore. Sina Weibo is the Twitter equivalent of China, but it has also evolved, into something that people use to catch up on news, to catch up on what's happening, what's buzzing on social media, and also leveraged pretty much by KOLs, because you can accumulate a huge number of followings. You can have 1 million, 10 million, 50 million followers on Weibo, which you can reach with a single short message. But on WeChat, you're limited on the number of people you can make friends with, and it's relatively more difficult for you to accumulate fans on the WeChat public account platform. Video platforms, as I mentioned, you have the long-form content equivalent of YouTube, Youku, Tencent Video, iQIYI. These are the equivalents of YouTube, Netflix, and things like that. But the more popular video platforms are the TikTok equivalent Douyin, its competitor Kuaishou in China. So these two platform does essentially the same thing. They're all very similar to TikTok. Make it extremely easy for you to produce interesting short videos to share with friends. The difference, you would say, do they compete head to head? Not exactly. I think if you look at their demographics, Douyin is more, their user base is more in first tier cities. It's more, the white collar, more affluent, the demographic. And Kuaishou is more in the second, third, and lower tier cities. And if you go into these apps and if you look at the content, you can tell the difference almost immediately. So I'll show you some examples of these platforms later. So this is another significant, lifestyle platform, especially for the urban female demographic. It's called Xiaohongshu, Red, known also as Red or the Little Red Book, some people would call it. So this is a place for people to share tips on, things, beauty, cosmetics, shopping, travel, what have you. So people can really become influencers on this platform if you share enough content and your content, are of good quality. So this is a platform you really should pay some attention to if you're looking at, branding for your products in China, especially if you're targeting, the more affluent female urban demographic. This is another relatively new platform launched by Weibo. This is called Oasis. This was launched for influencers to use to publish content. I think this will be somewhat in competition with Red, but is more geared towards serving KOLs. A lot of the MCNs would have their KOLs working on Oasis, especially if they already have a significant following on Weibo already. Now, these two are also interesting platforms. The Quora of China is called Zhihu, very similar. I think the demographics is also very similar. This is the popular in the intellectual crowd. People will be asking any kinds of questions. You can be invited to answer some questions by the platform if you establish some authority on the platform. A lot of travel brands have also set up official accounts on Zhihu to, answer questions, to provide official answers, to some of the questions regarding their destinations or their travel products. Douban is a similar platform. Is not for Q&A, but more of a forum. One of the key features of Douban are movie reviews. If you ask my kids, my daughter, why would you watch a video or a movie, on TV? They would tell me, it has a Douban ranking of 9 or something like that. So this is, again, a very popular platform of the urban young. So once we get into the OTA world, you have Trip.com. Everybody should know this. But you also have their competition and, companies that actually own partially. One of the biggest competitors to Trip.com would be Fliggy. This is the travel arm of the Alibaba group. And the other big contender would be Meituan. This is really not a platform. I wouldn't call them an OTA per se. This is a bigger, lifestyle platform. People use it to order home delivery, to look at reviews and to get a bike sharing, many different things. But they also sell a lot of hotel room nights. As a matter of fact, they actually sold more hotel room nights than Trip.com did in 2019. But their hotels are more in the lower tier of the market. You're looking at, 2-star, 3-star hotels versus the the more high-end hotels that Ctrip sells. Also in the travel space, you have QYER. This is a travel review site, but different from a TripAdvisor. They have user-generated content, but they also have a lot of professionally generated content. So these are carefully curated destination guides that you can download, which is one of the most popular features of the platform. And then you have this Tencent and Ctrip-backed travel review site. I think they're also becoming an OTA. I think that's the direction they're going for, social commerce and things like that. They're also making a pretty strong entry into the live streaming market since about 2 months ago. So that was a quick overview of the major applications in the digital landscape, and also some of the leading travel players digitally. Now, here is a look at the pre-pandemic digital journey. So if you look at this, this is actually not that different from a typical consumer journey anywhere. It starts from inspiration to research and planning to booking to travel, in destination experiences, and to advocacy after the trip. The major differences will be at each stage of the travel journey, the applications to use will be very different from other markets. But in general, this travel journey is quite similar to other places, which I will present a scenario that looks quite different right now, and I think we'll be keep going that direction after the pandemic is over. So now let's get into a discussion of the travel marketing during the pandemic, especially during the recovery process. Virtual experiences, online exhibitions, online collections, live streaming of tours using a combination of Zoom and other streaming apps. This will sound and look very familiar to you because this is happening all over the world. During lockdown, many travel players are using online tools to share their travel experiences online. Video tours, again, this should be very familiar, right? This is happening all over the world. I won't talk too much about these because this is common throughout the travel industry everywhere. But this is something that is unique in China. Social commerce. The travel industry, especially the travel agency industry, was really devastated from the beginning of the pandemic. Their business went from booming a year ago, 6 months ago, to zero almost overnight. But the travel industry is quite resilient, as we have seen in China and elsewhere. A lot of the travel agents, they didn't simply go away. They actually became active in other areas of the business. One of the major trends was social commerce. So they were leveraging their client relationships. They were leveraging their general ability in sales to sell other things people are buying during the pandemic. Some of the popular things I'm seeing in my WeChat moments almost on a daily basis I'll give you 3 examples. The first one is, a friend who used to be, selling cruises, who's now selling fresh fruits, fresh produce, and selling a lot of those, and being successful at doing that. The second guy was from a TMC. They're selling apricot, and other fresh produce. Every day there will be something different. Once in a while, this same person might be selling a flight ticket from LA back to China for a charter flight, the next day you'll be seeing him selling fruits again, right? And then you also have other, tour operators moving to the cosmetic space. They actually design their own line of cosmetics and start selling those online by targeting the same client they used to be selling, travel products. I'm not sure, I haven't seen this, mentioned on LinkedIn or any other social media I follow in other markets, but this is a very clear trend in China. A lot of the travel agencies are actually making a living. A lot of their staff are making a living by doing things like this. Obviously, it's nowhere close to where they were before, but at least this is something they can do to weather off the storm. But what really stands out is live streaming. This is not live streaming in a general sense. This is live streaming and shopping combined. This, again, I believe, is quite unique in China. I will give you some examples, but before I do that, I'll show you some background information. So if you look at the market penetration of live streaming in China, 560 million live streaming viewers in China. That's a 62% penetration in the market, and a lot of those users were acquired during the past few months. During the lockdown period, they start to use live streaming apps, and as a matter of fact, almost every major e-commerce app, travel app has incorporated live streaming in their application already. So it's not, you don't talk about, oh, I'm using a particular live streaming app. You just like, which app do you use? Do you use the Trip.com app? Do you use the JD app? Do you use the Taobao app? Or do you use a specialized, live streaming app or a mini program? Live streaming is everywhere. Live streaming is, popular for entertainment, but what I want to focus today is e-commerce. So, e-commerce sales, I'll give you some specific statistics on campaign performance, but the overall projection for e-commerce sales through live streaming is $14 billion US. That will be, up from $4 billion in 2018. That's almost, a threefold increase in 2 years. Live streaming, as I mentioned, grew significantly during the lockdown. Here's an example of Taobao. The e-commerce platform for their live streaming usage grew by over 100% in February alone. That's the beginning of the pandemic in China. And if you look at the recent numbers from January to June of this year, bandwidth for streaming on the Tencent cloud platform increased 500%. That's live streaming has already been popular by the end of 2019. Even with that popularity, from January to June, there's still another 500% growth in the bandwidth, consumption. That's only for Tencent Cloud. I'm sure you see similar, growth curve for Ali Cloud and other, cloud service providers. So in terms of the type of live streaming, you have these really, popular professional live streamers. I'm showing you a couple examples. The one on the left is his name is Li Jiaqi, is known as the lipstick king of China, right? This is a guy who sells lipsticks better than anybody in the world. I dare to say. In one kind of a session, he could sell millions the worth of US dollars of lipsticks. In the month of February, total sales by his channel exceeded $136 million. That's mostly lipsticks and other products, cosmetics, and anything he could find of great value and of a great quality. I'll share more about kind of some of the tricks of why they can sell so much, but they are selling a lot. The picture on the right is of the live stream queen of Taobao. Her name is Wei Ya. During Double 11, the shopping festival that was started by Taobao, her sales was rumored to be over 420 million US dollars for that one shopping festival, that one day or a couple of days of sales. So these are significant e-commerce channels, from the professional live streamers. But you also have celebrity live streamers. So they see, okay, you can make such a huge impact on live streaming platforms in e-commerce. Some of the celebrities jumped in. Number one is the CEO of Gree, which is a consumer electronics vendor in China. She saw the booming of live streaming and said, "Oh, I want to try this myself." Her first live streaming session attempt, she didn't get many viewers, and the sales was minuscule, in comparison to the professional streamers. She blamed network problems, but then she fixed her issues, and then the next session was overwhelmingly successful. Her sales for selling window unit, air conditioners, refrigerators, and things like that exceeded over $100 million US dollars in June. That's in 1 month. She sold that much worth of electronics herself. A single person using a single platform sold this much. And then you also have the CCTV anchors. 4 of them teamed up and did streaming sessions. They sold 70 million US dollars worth of products on May 1st. On that single day, leveraging their celebrity and also leveraging the impact and reach of the CCTV platform. The picture on the right hand side, number 3, shows this is actually a very famous English teacher, cell phone brand founder, entrepreneur, who actually invented or produced a very popular cell phone in China, who has also leveraged his fame to do live streaming. He sold 17 million US dollars worth of goods in his first live streaming event. So these are celebrity personalities who saw the opportunity and jumped in. There are many other examples of people using live streaming not for entertainment but for e-commerce purposes. And as I mentioned in one of my opening slides, James Leong from Citrip has also jumped in and has sold over 520,000 hotel room nights in 11 streams. So I think the average GMV revenue generated from each streaming session exceeded 10 million Chinese yuan. That's again pretty significant. I think Mr. Leong is no longer the CEO of Trip.com. He's the chairman. He's one of the key founders. I think he's doing this not only for recovery of the Citrip business, but I think he's also doing this to rally up his troops, to show there are things he can do during the recovery. I think a lot of other travel industry executives are doing the same thing. I'll show you a few other examples. So this is really twofold. You can drive some revenue, but at the same time, you can really show the consumers you're back, and also really rally the troops to get people excited about the travel business again and to get ready for the recovery. So this is another senior travel industry executive, the founder of Spring Air and their travel agency businesses. She was selling, travel packages for his hometown on a live streaming session, but he was also selling, he was holding a picture of one of Spring Air's aircraft. He was selling the aircraft, what do you call that? The paintings, the branding of aircrafts. He sold $4 million worth of travel products plus branding opportunities on their aircrafts in one live streaming session. Right? This is obviously after James Leong did his session. You also have one of the Citrip group companies, Chunar, who's also doing this. So $2.3 million worth of products. If you listened to his live streaming, it was quite interesting. It was candid. It was saying, "Oh, maybe we're not making a lot of money by selling these products at heavily discounted prices, but we're actually bring our brands in front of the consumers again. We're also telling our staff there are already things to do. Business is in the recovery already." Hotels are also not sitting idle. So you see some of these hotel brands are also doing streaming. Marriott has sent out their regional executives, and Shangri-La is using their hotel executives, and then you have Marriott using KOLs, and there are many other travel businesses doing streaming. Not everybody is selling millions of dollars, but people are selling, and they are seeing the benefit of streaming already, and they are doing it. So how does it work? A shopping combined with live streaming. I'm sure you've watched live streaming of entertainment content and others. You've probably seen many streaming sessions like what we're doing now on the B2B side. But on the consumer live streaming side in China, especially for e-commerce oriented live streaming, this is how it works, technically. So you look at the streaming window. The host is talking about a hotel, is talking about a vacation package, and then something pops up on the screen with a deal, right? The host will say, "I have a limited time offer, 70% off the rack rate for this hotel. Let's all jump in to buy this," right? People click on this offer. They are launched into kind of a e-commerce screen, if you will, the product detail screen of an e-commerce, a typical e-commerce app, and then the live streaming screen is minimized to the corner, and then you can basically go through the e-commerce process. Well, the live streaming, you can still hear the host continue to talk about the products and things like that. So it's very straightforward, and this is how people can really, integrate shopping into live streaming. Every single major live streaming app and all the major e-commerce app now support this functionality. This is easy. This is the easy part. But how does it really work? So if you ask yourself the question, if it is so easy, right? Every live streaming session, I can sell 10 million worth of products. If I run one every single day, I would get 3.65 billion yuan worth of revenue. Why don't I just run one every day? Why don't a company like Citrip run 10 of these live streaming sessions a day, right? They would be getting 36 billion yuan worth of revenue simply from this single initiative. It's because it's really not that easy. It's not as easy as it seems, to people who are watching these numbers are being published. So one of the things that's working for live streaming is they're changing really the process. Online e-commerce and online OTAs. If you go to a website, you go to an app, the sales process is relatively passive, right? You present your products. You hope, the user will find your product attractive and would be willing to move along the path to purchase. But there's very little you can do to really influence them. But when you get to a, interactive session, especially hosted by a very persuasive, travel industry executive or a salesperson, that dynamic changes completely. I would contrast if you want to buy a sales car, if you're looking at a catalog versus you're standing in front of a used car salesman in a used car lot, right? The likelihood of closing a deal is many, many times higher in the second case than the first case. I would say this is similar. This is also similar to home shopping networks. These TV, shopping sales guys are really persuasive and really getting to the psychology of the compulsive shopping. I think similar things are happening, but this is more interactive. You can actually talk to the host. You cannot do that with the in the TV era. But in essence, in principle, it's the same kind of methodology. But live streaming events are also carefully orchestrated promotional events. They're not, just say, James said, oh, let's do a live streaming session tomorrow. There's a lot of work that has to be done with the supply chain. Same for Ms. Dong of Gree, the CEO of Gree. Lots and lots of work has to be done with the supply chain. Who's going to make the products available? How do you secure the discounts? If you cannot do that, you're not going to be able to see any meaningful revenue numbers, right? So the sales results were really, really achieved because they were carefully planned and they were offering very popular, high quality products at heavily discounted prices. You say, why can't anybody sell these popular high quality products at heavily discounted prices? You can if you have a channel. Now that channel is available to you on almost all major e-commerce applications, as well as some of the streaming apps. And you also need to package your product in a way that consumer can buy first and use later. This might not be as easy for travel products. For consumer electronics it's easy, but for travel products it will be more tricky. So let's take a quick look at the changing, digital journey post-pandemic. What the streaming has changed, real streaming and purchasing, during the streaming session has changed is it really collapsed the long process of awareness building, inspiration, evaluation, and purchase into a single event, right? In that 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour session, you could be hearing about the product, the brand for the first time, and you ended up paying for it because it is such a great deal, right? So this whole process has been collapsed. But as I mentioned, there are conditions of, how you can, make this happen. You have to have the products ready. At the same time, it's also changing the sequence of the digital journey, right? You used to do research and planning. Once you have done your purchase, you move on to pre-trip planning, and then you go, take your flights, go to enjoy your trip. But now you purchase, you buy, then you go back to plan. I bought, a bunch of hotel coupons. Now I need to know when to travel. And, that might affect your options on where you can go depending on the coupons you bought. Are they for particular hotels in certain destinations? Are they for certain time periods? Are certain time periods, exempted from the availability? So all that will make the, research and planning phase for consumers more complicated. So what you will end up with, I think, post-pandemic is a picture like this in terms of the digital journey. Instead of a nice sequence, from awareness building, inspiration, research, planning, booking, and all that, you're now getting into a loop before travel, right? You go from awareness all the way to booking, but you go back to research and planning. Although, the original path will still be there. So just beware, this is happening, this is already happening, and might be here to stay. So here are some other changes. Just quickly go through them. Digital will become more prominent. This is, very obvious. Video will be more prevalent through the entire consumer journey. Even when they are in destination, they might look to the short video platforms for inspiration on local activities. And expectation of contactless services will change the in-destination experiences significantly. The consumer journey for travel could also be completed on lifestyle and e-commerce platforms in China, in addition to OTAs. So how do you respond to these changes? I think, first of all, learn as much as you can about the short video and live streaming platforms, so you can choose the right platform for you. Really get to know the live streaming ecosystem. There are many, many players, the professional streamers, the MCNs, the celebrity streamers, and the KOLs. And there are also different business models. Some people take a commission. Some people, will charge you for a fixed fee in addition to a commission. And, there are ways for you to verify sales results. Many, many different, players and different business models you need to really figure out in order to get the benefit out of this new, phenomenon. And do conduct some consumer research or use data to better understand the changes in the consumer journey of your target audience. Really, get to know, are they buying things before they plan their trips? Where do they buy? How does that affect their research? How does that affect their, planning? You can do research, or you can use data to track those behavior. And lastly, be more control of the consumer journey. You don't have to sit passively, just wait for consumers to follow your designed path to purchase. Be proactive using data. Recognize who they are. Recognize what they have done with you. Amazon has done this many, many years ago, but now it's time for the travel industry to do more of these. Not on one platform, not on one channel, but cross channels, right? If they have watched live streaming session on a mini program, can you recognize that on your website when you come to visit your website? Can you personalize offerings on the website once you recognize that user? If you can carefully orchestrate and design those digital journeys, and then you lead the consumers from one step to the next step, I think you'll be in a very good position in the post-pandemic world when it comes to China outbound travel. So that's all I have to share. I'll give the mic back to Echo to see if we have any questions. I'd be happy to address some of the questions if you have.
Okay. Thanks, George, for your valuable sharing. Well, so we have collected some questions, and I already shared with you in our WeChat group. So, yep. George, would you like to share your insights on some of the raised questions? I think that everybody is very, eager to know more about the live streaming.
Yes. Okay. So actually, I do see these questions. The first question is interesting. Next time Chinese travelers pack their bags, chances are they will be heading somewhere within China's borders. How do international travel brands rebuild their confidence? This is, something, almost 100% of our clients are international destinations and travel brands. This question is front and center from all of our clients. So domestic travel will definitely rebound first, but you can already start plan for the recovery, from the Chinese outbound market. I'll give you a couple examples. Abu Dhabi has launched very recently a Go Safe campaign. So they are promoting that in China. From what I'm hearing, Abu Dhabi has increased their marketing budget in China significantly. I'm hearing a lot of job advertising, from their marketing agencies in China. So they're promoting this Go Safe campaign, which is really building consumer confidence. To say, once you can come here, we have a system in place to ensure the health and safety of you and your family. So that's important. You can start to do that now, figure out what's the best way to do it in your destination, and start communicating that. People have already started to do that. On the China side, Citrip launched a campaign. I don't know any of you participated in the virtual event yesterday about their campaign, Dreaming About Your Next Trip, Travel On, which is their campaign slogan. So they're rallying a lot of their partners and customers to talk about the confidence, really to build the confidence with consumers. So I have a couple other questions. How difficult is it to conduct live streaming on Chinese social media platforms? It's actually very easy. It's very, very easy. So the platforms are very easy to use. And for a lot of these platforms, you can also use them outside of China because they're using, cloud hosting facilities that have nodes and facilities outside of China. So the bandwidth should be sufficient for most of them. Is it possible to access all those mentioned live streaming platforms when not based in China? I think you can access most of the live streaming platforms. I'm not sure about the performance, whether you get, a good quality streaming on all of them. But for the major ones, I think they will work well. I'll pick a couple others. My question is, what content would be used in live streaming? So many, many different content. You can talk about your safety and health, program. If it is consumer oriented, you can talk about your, updates of your products and packages if it's B2B oriented. But if you're looking at e-commerce during streaming, you really need to talk about your products. And this is not, products that you sell by calendar. For example, book a hotel room, come to my website to book a hotel room, because they cannot do that within that 3-hour window. They don't know when they will be traveling. They don't know, where they will be going. But sell coupons. A lot of hotel companies do that. Sell coupons that they can use, they can redeem for future travel. So talk about your destinations, talk about how great those deals are if you want to do e-commerce during live streaming. Okay. Okay, this is an interesting question. Can we, from abroad, do live streaming in China and get money out of China? Also, what would be the best platform to start streaming as a foreigner for outbound travel? To the first question, you can definitely stream from outside of China to the Chinese audience. There are ways for you to register with these platforms. or you can ask, an agency to help you register an account, and then you can start streaming from outside of China. Actually, a recent example is Sweden, the tourist board. Visit Sweden is actually doing a series of live streaming from Sweden. They are probably doing it, I don't know, YouTube or Periscope or some of the Western streaming platforms, because it is a global campaign. But in China, they're on Yizhibo and maybe other platforms, which is the live streaming platform of Weibo. Can you get money out of China if you sell products? If you sell, 100 coupons, you get, 5,000 US dollars. Can you get the money outside of China? That really depends on how you're set up. If you have let's say, a overseas merchant account with Alipay or an overseas merchant account with a Tencent Pay, you might be able to get that money directly deposited into your bank account outside of China. But if you don't have any of that relationships, it will be more difficult. You probably have to use a local agency, to help you, do the actual sales and to collect money. Let me see. I can do a couple more questions, and then we should probably conclude. What has been the biggest change in China's travel industry over the last 6 months? The biggest change would be we used to have a travel industry. Now we barely have one, to be honest. But the industry is resilient. The industry is getting back. I think as soon as the borders open, all the outbound agencies will get busy. They are selling fruits now, but they will be selling their beloved travel products as soon as they can. One last question. My question is, what are the most important things a live stream sales have to be prepared for overseas hotels? Also for hotels, what are the platforms that are suitable for overseas hotels? Okay, so I think, as I mentioned, you have to package your product that you can sell within a 45-minute window or a 1-hour window. You cannot ask people to go visit your website and make a booking. That is not going to work. You can package your products. You can sell coupons. You can sell prepaid hotel bookings with flexible arrival dates. Some hotels are selling flexible, prepaid hotel bookings with flexible dates, with arrival dates, up to used for the next 12 months. And there are also flexible cancellation policies. So those are, the flexibilities you have to build into your packaging. But in addition to live streaming sales, if you start to package your products like this, you can, get the benefit out of the Chinese e-commerce landscape more and more. You've probably heard about Double 11. You've probably heard of 618 and all the other, shopping festivals. These are man-made, shopping festivals created out of the thin air. But they're selling, for this one single day, for a lot of travel brands, they could be selling, 50% worth of products for their, whole year on that single channel, right? But if you know how to package products for these campaigns, for live streaming, you will be really able to leverage, all these different promotional channels and promotional mechanism, including live streaming. I think that's most of the questions I see echo. And it's almost 9 o'clock. If there are no more questions, shall we conclude?
Sure. Okay. So thanks, George, again. And your instruction is very informative. Again, thank thank you all for your participation today. We will send you the playback link along with the presentation slides in PDF format within this Thursday through email. So you can check your mailbox, which is registered before. Okay, so today we thank you all for the participation and all your questions. Have a nice day.